There are moments in life when something deep inside you whispers that your story is different. Not better than anyone else's, not more important, but different in a way that is difficult to explain. Maybe you have felt it during the quiet hours of the night, when the world slows down and your thoughts finally speak louder than the noise around you. A strange awareness, a sense that you have been carrying something heavier than the average person realizes. But what if that feeling is not confusion? What if it is recognition? Many people move through life following clear paths, repeating familiar patterns, fitting comfortably into the expectations of the world around them. Yet some individuals feel as if they are constantly observing life from a slightly different angle. They notice things others overlook. They feel emotions more deeply. They question situations that others simply accept. Have you ever wondered why certain experiences in your life felt unusually intense? Why challenges seemed to arrive one after another, as if life kept testing your patience, your character, and your resilience? It can feel exhausting. At times it may even feel unfair. But pause for a moment and think carefully. What if those experiences were not random obstacles? What if they were shaping something within you that you yourself have not fully understood yet? Throughout history, thinkers and observers of human nature have noticed that people who develop deep awareness often pass through difficult seasons before clarity arrives. Hardship forces reflection. Reflection sharpens perception, and perception gradually changes the way a person understands themselves and the world around them. Perhaps this is why some individuals feel older in wisdom than their years suggest. Not because they were born with special status, but because their life experiences demanded deeper thinking earlier than most. Have you noticed how certain situations seem to reveal truths to you before others recognize them? A conversation where you sense tension beneath polite words. A decision where you can already see the consequences long before they unfold. A pattern in people's behavior that becomes obvious to you while others remain unaware. This heightened awareness is not always comfortable. In fact, it can feel isolating. When you perceive layers of reality that others do not discuss, it becomes harder to explain what you are experiencing. You may have even questioned yourself. Am I overthinking? Am I imagining things? Or is there something deeper happening here? The truth is that human awareness develops in different ways. Some people are naturally inclined toward observation, reflection, and internal growth. They analyze their experiences more carefully. They search for meaning in events that others quickly dismiss. And over time, that habit of reflection begins to change them. It strengthens their patience. It sharpens their understanding of human behavior. It deepens their sense of responsibility toward their own actions. But here is the part many people overlook. When you spend years navigating intense emotional lessons, facing misunderstandings, and carrying responsibilities that others rarely see, something powerful forms inside your character. Not arrogance, not superiority, but endurance. And endurance changes the way a person moves through the world. So the real question is not whether your life has been difficult. The real question is this: what has that difficulty been quietly building within you all along? If you look back at your life carefully, you may begin to notice a pattern that did not make sense while you were living through it. Certain seasons felt heavier than they should have been. Situations tested your patience in ways that seemed almost relentless. People misunderstood your intentions, questioned your choices, or even doubted your character. And during those moments, it may have felt as though you were carrying something invisible that no one else could see. Why does that happen to some people more than others? It is a question many thoughtful individuals eventually ask themselves. Not out of self-pity, but out of curiosity. Because when challenges repeat themselves in different forms, it begins to feel less like coincidence and more like a process. Consider how pressure shapes things in the physical world. A rough stone becomes smooth only after years of friction. Steel becomes stronger after intense heat and force. Growth, in many areas of life, often comes through tension rather than comfort. Human character seems to follow a similar pattern. People who face repeated trials often develop a kind of inner strength that cannot be taught through easy experiences. They learn patience when things do not go their way. They learn restraint when emotions run high. They learn awareness because they have seen how quickly situations can change. But here is something interesting. While these lessons are forming within you, others may not notice the transformation taking place. To them, it might simply look like you are going through difficult phases. They may even assume you are struggling without realizing that something deeper is quietly developing inside your perspective. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone reacted to a situation with anger or panic, while you remained unusually calm? Not because you lacked emotion, but because you had already learned how fragile certain moments can be. Experiences teach that. They refine judgment, they sharpen awareness, and gradually they build a kind of quiet resilience. This resilience does not announce itself loudly. It does not demand recognition. In fact, many people who develop it become even more reflective and cautious about their words and actions. They begin to understand that every decision carries consequences, and every interaction shapes the environment around them. This awareness can make life feel heavier at times. When you see deeper layers of a situation, you cannot easily ignore them. When you understand the impact of choices, you cannot pretend that actions are meaningless. Yet at the same time, this awareness can become one of your greatest strengths. It allows you to pause before reacting. It allows you to understand people beyond their surface behavior. It allows you to navigate complicated situations with clarity that others may only gain after mistakes. And slowly, something remarkable begins to happen. What once felt like endless pressure begins to reveal a purpose in shaping your character. Not a predetermined destiny or a mystical title, but a transformation of perspective. You become someone who observes before judging, someone who listens before speaking, someone who recognizes patterns others overlook. But here is where the deeper realization begins to emerge. If your experiences have been preparing you to see life more clearly, then perhaps the weight you have been carrying was never meant to break you. Perhaps it was preparing you to understand yourself in a way you have not fully realized yet. There comes a moment in many people's lives when they begin to see their past through a different lens. Events that once looked like random struggles slowly start to connect like pieces of a puzzle. Situations that caused confusion years ago suddenly reveal lessons that were hidden in plain sight. Have you ever experienced that kind of realization? A memory appears in your mind, and for the first time you understand why it happened the way it did. The misunderstanding that once frustrated you now looks like a turning point. The difficult conversation that once hurt your feelings now feels like a moment that pushed you toward maturity. Perspective changes everything. When you begin to examine your experiences carefully, you may notice how each challenge forced you to develop qualities that cannot be learned in comfort. Patience, restraint, emotional awareness, and resilience often grow quietly in the background while life moves forward. At the time, those moments rarely feel meaningful. They simply feel heavy. But later, something becomes clear. Every difficult experience required you to pause and reflect. Every misunderstanding encouraged you to observe human behavior more closely. Every disappointment forced you to examine your expectations and adjust your thinking. Little by little, these moments reshape the way you approach the world. You begin to recognize patterns in people's words and actions. You learn to notice when someone is speaking honestly and when they are hiding something behind their tone. You develop a deeper sense of empathy because you understand how easily people can be misunderstood. And perhaps most importantly, you begin to understand yourself. Self-awareness does not appear overnight. It grows through reflection. It grows through mistakes. Do not multitask. It grows through moments when you realize that your reactions today are different from how you might have reacted years ago. Think about that for a moment. There was a time when certain situations could easily pull you into frustration or emotional exhaustion. But now, you may find yourself responding with patience instead. Instead of reacting immediately, you step back and consider the bigger picture. What changed? Your experiences shaped your perspective, and that perspective has been quietly transforming the way you navigate life. People often underestimate the power of internal growth because it happens gradually. There is no dramatic announcement when someone becomes more thoughtful, more aware, or more resilient. The transformation takes place in small decisions, in moments of reflection, and in the lessons learned from situations that once felt overwhelming. But those changes matter more than most people realize, because the way you see the world influences every action you take. It influences how you treat others, how you respond to challenges, and how you handle moments of uncertainty. And when you develop the ability to remain thoughtful, even during difficult situations, you begin to carry a different kind of presence. Not one built on loud confidence, but on quiet understanding. People may not always recognize where that presence comes from. They might simply notice that you seem steady when things become chaotic. They might notice that you choose your words carefully. They might even feel that speaking with you brings clarity to their own thoughts. But what they may not realize is that this steadiness was built over time. It was shaped by experiences that forced you to grow long before you realized what those lessons were preparing you for. Eventually, a quiet realization begins to settle in. It does not arrive with noise or dramatic announcements. It comes slowly through reflection, through patience, and through the gradual understanding of your own journey. You begin to see that the weight you carried for so long was never meaningless. Every misunderstanding forced you to think more carefully about your words. Every disappointment pushed you to examine your expectations. Every difficult season taught you something about patience, resilience, and the importance of maintaining integrity, even when circumstances feel unfair. And when you step back and observe the larger picture, a powerful question begins to form in your mind. What kind of person would you be today if those experiences had never happened? It is easy to imagine a life with fewer struggles, a life where everything unfolded smoothly and predictably. But would that version of you possess the same depth of understanding? Would you recognize the emotional struggles of others as clearly? Would you pause and reflect as often as you do now? Growth rarely develops in perfect conditions. More often, it grows quietly in the middle of uncertainty. It grows when a person is forced to slow down and examine their thoughts. It grows when someone chooses patience instead of reaction, reflection instead of impulsive judgment. Over time, these choices reshape your character. You begin to move through the world with a stronger sense of awareness. Not because you believe you are above anyone else, but because your experiences have taught you to pay attention to things many people overlook. You notice the small details in conversations. You recognize emotional signals in people's behavior. You understand that every person is carrying struggles that may never be visible on the surface. And this understanding naturally leads to something powerful: responsibility. When you become aware of how your words and actions affect others, you begin to act with greater care. You speak with more intention. You listen more closely. You think about the long-term impact of your decisions rather than only the immediate result. This kind of awareness changes the way you approach life. Instead of constantly asking why certain challenges happen to you, the question gradually shifts into something more meaningful. What can I learn from these experiences? How can these lessons shape the way I treat others? How can the patience and resilience I developed help me navigate the future with wisdom? These questions reflect a deeper level of maturity. They show that your focus has moved beyond frustration and toward understanding. And perhaps that is the realization many people reach after years of reflection. The strength you carry today did not appear suddenly. It was built slowly, through moments that tested your patience, your character, and your perspective. Those experiences shaped your awareness and taught you to approach life with thoughtfulness and balance. So when you think about the path you have traveled, remember this: the challenges you faced were not simply obstacles standing in your way. They were experiences that helped reveal parts of your character you might never have discovered otherwise. And as you continue moving forward, that awareness becomes one of the most valuable things you possess. Not because it makes life easier, but because it allows you to navigate life with clarity, patience, and a deeper understanding of both yourself and the people around you. As your awareness grows, another quiet shift begins to take place within you. It is not something dramatic that the world immediately notices. In fact, many of the most meaningful changes happen entirely within your perspective. You start to realize that understanding yourself is a lifelong process. At one point in your life, you may have believed that clarity would arrive suddenly, as if one moment of realization would explain everything about your past and your purpose moving forward. But real understanding rarely works that way. Instead, it unfolds gradually, layer by layer, as you reflect on your experiences and continue to grow. Think about how different your thinking is today compared to several years ago. Situations that once seemed overwhelming now feel manageable. Conversations that once triggered strong reactions now invite calm reflection. You may even notice that your patience has expanded in ways you never expected. This is the quiet evidence of internal growth. And yet, even with this growth, there may still be moments when you question yourself, moments when you wonder whether you are truly seeing things clearly or simply overanalyzing life's complexities. That kind of questioning is not weakness. In many ways, it is a sign of thoughtful awareness. People who reflect deeply often examine their own assumptions more carefully than others. They pause before drawing conclusions. They consider different perspectives before making decisions. This habit of reflection can sometimes feel lonely, especially in a world that often encourages quick opinions and instant reactions. But thoughtful reflection is what allows a person to develop wisdom, rather than simply collecting experiences without understanding them. Have you noticed how easy it is for people to repeat the same patterns without realizing it? Someone might face the same conflict again and again, never pausing long enough to ask why those situations keep appearing in their life. They move quickly from one event to the next without extracting the lessons hidden within those experiences. But when you develop the habit of reflection, something different happens. You begin to recognize patterns not only in others, but in yourself. You start asking deeper questions about your reactions, your decisions, and the environments you choose to be part of. Why did that situation affect me the way it did? What could I approach differently next time? What kind of person do I want to become as I move forward? These questions create space for growth, and over time, they help you develop a clearer sense of direction in life. Not a rigid path where every step is predetermined, but a guiding awareness that influences how you respond to opportunities and challenges. You begin to value patience over urgency. You begin to value understanding over assumptions. You begin to value integrity over temporary approval. These priorities quietly shape the way you move through the world. People may not always see the internal process behind your choices, but they often notice the stability that comes from it. Because when a person has spent years reflecting, learning, and adapting, they develop something rare, the ability to remain grounded even when circumstances shift. And perhaps that is one of the most important realizations of all. The strength you carry today is not simply the result of what happened to you. It is the result of how you chose to learn from those experiences and how you allowed them to refine your character over time.